Hello and welcome, history fans, to History Play-by-Play. Today we're going to be looking at one of the causes of World War I, militarism.
In all alone. Dangle, shot. He scores!
So militarism is one of the four main causes of World War I. That these four things together are why World War I had to happen sooner or later, and the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand is what finally set that whole thing in motion. And so militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism will all be covered in videos, as is the Archduke. This is about militarism. So what is militarism? Militarism is a belief that a strong military is essential to a country's success. That military thought creeps into politics. In some cases, you have a civilian government who has little control over the military, or perhaps the military exercises a lot of control over the civilian government. That there's aggressive military preparedness. I like this phrase, that it's that person who's just a little too ready to fight, a little too ready to call you out. Oh, you want to step outside? What, you want to fight about it? Come on. That kind of idea is militarism. And an overall thought that war is glorious and not something to be avoided for the loss of life, but for something that is a good thing to hang your hat on. And militaristic, is really seen as a dirty word among countries. But it's hard to say that this does not in some way apply to the United States today. It's part of the culture, born in a revolution and really hasn't stopped fighting for that cause of democracy. So militarism is certainly a key idea that while we say it's a bad thing, it's all around us. In the Industrial Revolution, it doesn't avoid the military either. And so you see many upgrades in the military, starting with the self-contained bullet. We see that same ability to streamline and shorten times things take applied to firearms. The self-contained bullet, which really comes around 1845, is what leads to the rest of this. Previously, you had a cloth pouch or a paper pouch with a cartridge in it. You had to tear it open with your teeth, and you'd pour the gunpowder down the barrel. You'd stuff the bullet in. You'd take out a ramrod, and you'd push that all the way to the end of the gun barrel. Then you have to put that back. And then you'd pour some powder into your firing mechanism. You'd close that, and then you'd fire. And a good soldier could get off 3 shots a minute. Now it's much, much quicker. All you got to do is pop that bullet into the back, and you're ready to shoot. So you get from 3 shots a minute to 30. And that really starts with the Gewehr 98. In my classes, there are 4 guns you have to know all year, because it shouldn't be a big deal. The Brown Bess musket and the Kentucky long rifle from the American Revolution, that's a key idea into how the armies fought. Make sure you know that. The next 2 come with World War I. Because the Gewehr 98 is the first bolt-action rifle that's really used on a widespread basis. And a bolt-action rifle means that all you got to do is pull back a lever at the back of the gun right near the trigger, pull it out, that pops out the last cartridge that just got fired, sets up the next one as you push it back in, and you're ready to fire. It's as quickly as pulling that bolt back and putting it back in place, and you can shoot again. Going from 3 shots a minute to 30 shots a minute, give or take, is one of those key ideas of the Industrial Revolution. Faster, faster, faster. More, more, more. Industrialized. And the Gewehr 98 is the template that's used throughout the world for bolt-action rifles, and certainly has a legacy that continues to this day. The other is the Maxim Gun, which is the first real machine gun. You could make arguments for the Gatling gun, but it's all about the process. What this used, the invention of Hiram Maxim, is that with every shot, so part of that explosion, part of that gas that comes from the exploding bullet, pushing the bullet downrange, is used to load the next bullet. That pushes back a mechanism which ejects that bullet and then pulls in the next one to pop into the barrel. And so it can fire off many, many, many a minute. And so things like the Vickers gun that you'll see much more commonly said throughout World War I, this is where it starts. And this thing can shoot about 500 rounds a minute. We're starting to get really astronomical ways, an industrial level of killing. And that's all part of this. It goes so far that even it's a water-cooled machine gun, that large barrel has a lot of water running through it to keep the whole thing from melting. Artillery was much the same way. It's like a big bullet. You do all the same process, and you have to push it down the barrel and so on. To field guns that can fire tens of miles. And you can see how large those shells that they would fire downrange would be down at the bottom. Again, an industrial level of killing. Naval warfare moves so far as that you would have ships that you recognize, that sail is dead, and even the ironclads that, you know, is bridging that gap and ends warfare by wooden ships has now transferred into dreadnoughts. Britain, in fact, introduces that it must rule the waves. The two-power policy is that Great Britain will maintain a navy bigger than any two countries combined. And they made sure that if they had the greatest navy, they would not need the greatest army. And being on an island, that's a real thing. And so other countries tried to keep up through things, but especially Germany wanted to try and keep up, but they couldn't keep up with that surface fleet. It simply wasn't possible. So they turned to U-boats or submarines, Unterseebooten. And so this was a way to take down many battleships with just one submarine, that you could take the sneaky way of things. And this is looked down upon by the world, and there's going to be a lot of reckoning of what do you do with the rules of the waves. But what are you going to do? You get massive buildups in a very short time across a number of different countries of countries building up their militaries. Why? Two main reasons. First, ever since the Congress of Vienna, Napoleon, hopefully you remember things about him, he conquered most of Europe. And so when it came out of that, they redrew the map and they tried to make everything in balance. The problem with making everyone balanced, if one person tries to do more, let's say if France adds, more army, 100,000 more men, what's everyone else going to have to do? Everyone else is going to have to do that to keep up. And so what happens then if Prussia adds 10,000 men? Well, then everyone else has to do it to keep up. And it just goes up and up and up until everyone trying to keep up with each other, you have a massive buildup. You also have, with small European nations losing small wars outside of the European continent. Well, it starts on the European continent. The Franco-Prussian War, I used to make jokes, was the most irrelevant thing in history. And yet, I have been so proven wrong that this is one of those key moments. Prussia invades France and really just wiped the floor with them. Just utterly embarrassing for France. So France, to make sure that this never happened again, built up their military. And so what did everyone else have to do? They built up their military. Britain, the Boer War in 1899, was against one of their colonies in Africa. And the Boers nearly fought to win their independence. They nearly did it. And this so scared Britain that they had to build a greater army on top of these things and put more army in the colonies in order to make sure that they stayed loyal to the British Crown. And every other country saw that they had to do that. And then the Russo-Japanese War. Russia really thought they were going to just destroy Japan. That it was over a railroad in Korea. Long story. But when Russia finally brought around the ships to fight Japan, Japan utterly embarrassed Russia. And this not only put Japan on the map as far as European powers are concerned, and Great Britain will sign an alliance with them shortly thereafter, but this also means Russia's embarrassed. And how do they make sure it's not going to happen again? They build up a massive army. So why is this significant? Why does this matter? Well, if you have it, you're going to want to spend it. You're going to want to use it. You've wasted all this money in maintaining this. You don't have anything to show for it if you don't go to war. And so, sooner or later, a war was going to happen. And that's how militarism became a major factor in the start of World War I. That's all I got. That's the end of the episode. What you just saw is this teacher's interpretation of events. If you use this for a class, let me know how that went in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you can figure out how today's jersey matches the content, let me know in the comments. That's extra credit. I'm John Baranowski, and thanks for watching.